Ahoy there, mates. Welcome aboard the VHS Pirate Ship. I'm Captain Adam, and welcome to Captain Adam's Show and Tell. The no frills, no thrills way to get your fill of chill. It's the show and tell that treats you well. It's Captain Adam's Show and Tell. Thank you very much for joining me today. And today, I'm going to be showing you some of the tapes in my double tape collection. A very interesting aspect of VHS. When a movie would be too long, they would have to put it on two tapes. It's just something you got to do because tapes, they only have so much room on them. And, sometimes if you have a long movie, you got to cram it into a home video the best way you can. And this is what they came up with. Pretty interesting. I always just call them bricks because they're just so cumbersome a bit, but they have to be. They serve a purpose. And when I was preparing for this video, going through my double tape collection, I realized just how many of them I had, and would be far too many for one video. So, in keeping with the double tape standard, I'm going to break this up into two separate episodes. So, welcome to part one of Captain Adam's Show and Tell double tape collection. So, if you're a VHS collector, where are you at on double tapes? Do you like them, or are you sort of opposed to them? Because, honestly, I sort of am. I don't particularly care for bricks, just because, well, if you've watched other show and tell videos here, you know that I'm all about shelf aesthetic. I like uniformity in a video library, at least to some extent. And double tapes, just given their nature, they just don't fit in with the rest of your tapes because, well, they're double tapes. And to put them with your other stuff just makes them look a little weird, but that's okay. Everybody's a little weird in their own way. I've always been a little weird. That's fine. So I reserve a totally separate shelf for my double tape collections. So I know, the reason why I don't care for them is a little bit superficial, I suppose, but, I'm all about shelf aesthetic, and, you just have to have their own little space for them. So if you have the space for them, they certainly look well all together, but mixed in with other tapes, they just don't look that well. There's something very unsettling about them, I must say. I know that's making a big deal over nothing, really, but that's just how it is for me. And also here, how are you doing out there? You doing okay? You having a good day? You having a good time? Maybe not so much. Maybe things are a little humdrum right now. Well, I hope they're not. But if they are, that's part of life. It does happen. We all have the humdrum days, or the mad days, or just the plain old bad days. And well, you got to remember, things they always get better. Things always change, and good always prevails. And always have faith, stay positive, and most certainly go with God, and just trust. Everything's going to be okay. I really want you to believe that, no matter what's going on. Maybe you're having some sort of financial difficulties, money problems right now. I know when I'm having money problems, or when I'm broke, it seems to affect my entire milieu as it is, and I don't like that. It seems that my spirit is completely tied to how much money I have, and I don't really know how that happened, but it does happen. So maybe you're in the same boat I am, is that when you are having or you're some kind of money problems, or you're low on funds at the time, maybe it's really affecting your mood, your spirit. Because that's, I've noticed that about myself, to where money seems to be directly affected to how my spirit is. And I gotta tell you, if there's anything about myself I don't like, that's number one. I don't like that. But that's what we've been conditioned to really settle into, is that if you don't have money, obviously you're not doing well. But that's not true at all. Think of all the riches you do have that aren't monetary, and that any monetary problem you have is temporary, and there's blessings just right around the corner. So I know I need to remind myself of this, and I hope you do as well. I hope you remind yourself of that and remember that, just because you're broke at the moment doesn't mean you're worthless. Doesn't mean everything's horrible. It just means that, things are just, things are heavy. And as they say in the Fellowship of the Ring book, we have to tighten our belts and think of Elrond's table. So it's we all got to do that. Tighten your belts sometimes. But just remember that money is a tricky thing. It's just a fallacy of the world, and even though that's what makes it go round, it doesn't mean it makes you go round. Doesn't make your spirit go round. I'm saying this from someone who does have money problems, who is broke a lot of times, and I've noticed, like I said, that when I am, it really affects how I feel, and I don't like that because they should be two separate things, and I'm really trying to change that, and I hope we all can realize that money is what it is, and but not having it isn't completely crucial to who we are. It's just something that we need to get through, and that is a big deal, I suppose. But I just wish I didn't feel as mopey, I guess you could say, as I do when I am having some money troubles or money issues, or just to let the till go a little too low. So it's just, it's one of those things. But we'll get over it. Things are going to get better. Things are always coming up roses. Just today's darkness is tomorrow's light. That's that's about all I can say about that. But let's get started. Let's look at some double tapes. First up, we have The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe from the Chronicles of Narnia. This was a BBC television miniseries, I believe. Found this at a thrift store. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to watch this entirely all the way through because it's got playback issues. It's okay. That's all right. I paid $1 for it. Look at that. It's just something cool to have. You don't come across it very often, if at all, really. One thing about thrift store finds is sometimes you come across something that's just so rare that you have to have it. And, even if it doesn't work properly, it's still, I still like it. You come across the weird, bizarre, strange, rare VHS in the wild, and it's only $1. Well, you just kind of have to buy it, don't you? So anyways, yes, unfortunately, I don't know really if this is any good because I got to like the first 10 minutes of the tape, and it just sort of starts to crap out. So, oh well, maybe one day I'll watch it. So, I'm a big fan of the books. We'll see how this is. I've seen reviews of it. People don't take too kindly to it, I guess, but everybody's got their own opinion, and really it's up to you to decide what you like. So it's all subjective. So let's move on. Here's an interesting piece. It's a tape I did not know existed until I came upon it in the wild. It's Apocalypse Now Redo. It's a double tape set that features lots of special stuff. It's like an extended cut. There's all kinds of little featurettes in it. So if you're a fan of this movie, you definitely should seek this out. I'm sure it's on the DVD now, so I guess it makes it a little less special. But what makes it special is that it is sort of just a relic of its time, and not really one you really see that often. And again, you come across something interesting or weird in the wild, certainly pick it up. And, the double tape Apocalypse Now Redo is one of those things. So let's move forth. And we go to another depressing film with The Deer Hunter, a fine Robert De Niro role, as well as a very young Christopher Walken. Who can really forget this movie once you've seen it? There's no going back. This is an interesting double tape because it sort of strays from what will become a traditional double tape design and actually give you two actual fully packaged VHS tapes, meaning that they're two tapes that have a sleeve each. So they are very much two separate VHS tapes as opposed to just two just bare cassettes within a cardboard box like they typically are, and it opens from the side as opposed to the bottom. So this is very interesting. A rather early release, MCA home video. I think this is like 88 or 89, because you can always tell by the logo. MCA, when they would first start out through the 80s, would just be known as MCA home video, but towards like the very, very late 80s into the 90s and beyond, it would become MCA Universal Home Video, then eventually just Universal Home Video. So you can always tell by the MCA logo what era it's from. So this is a very interesting one. It's a gift. My uncle had given this to me, actually. So, this is one I never see in the wild. So I thought it was a very thoughtful gesture of him to give it to me. And just very nice, because you don't really see this out there in thrift stores really at all. Maybe you have, I don't know, I never did. So there is that. And moving on to a more recent VHS release with Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King. Recent in that it is the latter era of VHS. This is a 2005 release. Of course, VHS would stop being produced commercially, well, on a mega scale in 2006. So this is one of the final VHS that there is, because there'd only be a year left in VHS's commercial lifespan. Very interesting, this tape. I had it for quite a while before I realized that it wasn't the special edition. I thought it was a special edition because it was a double tape. And of course, these special editions of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, they were all double tape sets. So I just assumed this was it, but it's not. The packaging is completely different in the special edition Return of the King than this one is. So I just didn't put the two together. But this is just the original theatrical cut of the film, which is long enough, I should say, without having a special extended edition. But they did it anyway. I don't have those. I used to have all three: the Fellowship of the Ring, the Two Towers, and the Return of the King special edition VHS. Had all three of them. It's a pretty killer thing to have in your collection. But I sold them recently, and I sold them for a pretty nice price. People definitely want them, and they're sort of hard to come across out there on the high seas of the internet. Certainly very hard to come across in the wild. The special edition Lord of the Rings VHS. Of course, the regular edition Lord of the Rings VHSs are rather common in thrift stores. But I've never really come across this one, but I did one day, so I obviously had to buy it. Again, like I said, when I first had it, I had no idea it was just the theatrical cut of the film. I thought it was a special edition because of the double tape, but it's not. So that's the real version of the film is double tape because it's just that long. Return of the King, not my favorite of the Lord of the Rings Peter Jackson trilogy. I thought it was okay, but I would say out of that trilogy, my favorite is, well, it had to be The Fellowship and then The Two Towers. I like The Two Towers very much. And then Return of the King is sort of like just really down there. I just didn't really care for it too much. Lots of differences between the film and the book, which is obvious. But, this one has a lot of differences, especially how Gandalf is depicted whilst fighting the Witch King. So that's sort of a thing. But, it is what it is. I'm happy to have this. Very happy to find it in the wild, especially to pay what I paid for. I think it was $1. It's just good stuff. Happy to have this in my double tape collection. But again, if you have the Lord of the Rings trilogy on VHS, just the normal editions like this one is, this one will not fit with your other Lord of the Rings tapes on your shelf because this is a double tape, so it's going to look a little strange compared to the other two films, which are on single tapes. So really, it really just pays to get all three special editions so they all look uniform on your shelves. So anyways, let's move on. Let's go with another epic film with possibly one of the best television movies, with Gulliver's Travels, starring Ted Danson as Gulliver. This is just a tremendous film, especially for a made-for-television movie. I remember it played on NBC. I think this was it 94? I don't really remember off the top of my head, but this is just a phenomenal film. It really is. It's very well done. It's just a really good adaptation of that book. Probably the best that there really is on film, I would say. Just very well done, very entertaining, just a total epic adventure, and you really just want to keep watching it. I mean, I would say I don't know, Merlin, that television movie with Sam Neill, that was pretty good too. So I mean, I would say that this though just trumps it just a little bit more. So made-for-television movies can go a little squiffy real quick, but they did make some really, really great ones. So I definitely recommend checking this one out, and also check out Merlin if you haven't already. I remember watching this Gulliver's Travels in school and just being really enamored with it, just because it was just very tremendously well done. So very, very happy to have this. Another thrift store find. Very surprised to find this. I about jumped out of my shoes when I found it, because I think this one was only 50 cents. I don't remember. I think it was Salvation Army that had this one, and they usually are they're pretty cheap on their tapes. So this was a great find. If you haven't seen this, it's out there. Definitely check it out. You don't have to have the VHS to watch it, obviously, but it's certainly a lot. It's more cool of an experience to watch it on VHS, I should say, just because of just the whole. Well, I'm not really sure why. I can't really explain it, but I think you get my point. So let's move on, shall we? Up next are two of my favorite films in one convenient set. It's the Terminator collection, the Terminator and Terminator 2 Judgment Day Letterbox edition. Now, I'm not entirely sure, but I think this was the first time both these films were released on home video in letterbox format. So this was a pretty big deal if you're a fan of letterbox. This contains one tape's the Terminator, the other tape's Terminator 2. Pretty simple. This was another thrift store find. This was only a quarter, I think, so that's pretty neat. And I haven't really fired this one up yet because, well, I have both films on multiple distributions, so this is just one more to add to the pot. The Terminator had many distributions, and I have most of them at least. And Terminator 2, I think only had 3 distributions, and I have them as well. So what's one more Terminator VHS? It's certainly, I think it's one of those tapes, or at least Terminator 2 is one of those tapes where if you're a collector, you just sort of accumulate many of them, because you do run into them a lot in the wild, or at least you used to. I know that was pretty much a very common find. I know everybody likes to joke about Jerry Maguire, but finding lots of Jerry Maguire out there in the wild. But there was a time where Terminator 2 was just as prevalent and just as plentiful. So yeah, Terminator 2 is sort of like Jerry Maguire in that regard. So yeah, I'm happy to have this one, though, I don't think it has any of the deleted scenes from Terminator 2. I think it's just the theatrical cut, which is okay, because, I don't know, there's deleted scenes from T2, just, I don't know, if they would have kept them in, it really would have changed the movie quite a bit, because they can be just a little bit silly. So that's just what I think anyways. So anyways, let's move on with an epic historical period piece that you might have forgotten about, with 1492 Conquest of Paradise, a Ridley Scott film. I believe this was it 91? I know it was early 90s, but yeah, this one's weird because it's almost like it doesn't need to be on a double tape set. Because it just doesn't seem like it's that long. I watched this about a year ago, and usually when I watch double tapes, I reserve one tape for one night and the next tape for the next night, for evening time viewing. So I did that with this one. You watched the first tape. I think it was about almost 2 hours, so that's okay. And then the next night I popped the second tape in, expecting basically the same, if not just a little bit less, something to fill that time. Only to find out that the second tape is only about 50 minutes long. So, yeah, that's kind of strange. It's like you really could have put the whole movie on one tape, because I have tapes that contain 3-hour movies with no problem, or at least they could have split up the movie a little bit more equally, because I watched it and then I was like, okay, well, what do I do with the rest of the time? It was pretty much done within under an hour. So I'm just kind of sitting there picking my nose. But that's okay. This is a pretty good film. Definitely epic. It's got the guy, I never remember this actor's name, but he's I love him. He's great. He's got a real raspy voice. He played the Guy of Gisborne in Prince of Thieves. He was the bad guy in The Crow. He was in Alien Resurrection. Whatever his name is, he's in this as well. He also plays the baddie, or like the villain type character. So he's in this, and certainly makes it very enjoyable. The film is just very well. Ridley Scott is he's a great director, and he sort of gets buried between underneath the Spielbergs and the John Hugheses and the Zemeckis and all this. But yeah, Ridley Scott is a pretty primo director, and he was it seemed like he was sort of a fan of doing these like period pieces, because he would go on to direct Gladiator many years later. So yeah, this is a pretty decent movie. If you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. The tape isn't all that common. I know I found it on the internet for relatively cheap, but at least when I looked it up, there wasn't many listings for it, and I've never seen this in the wild. So yeah, definitely check this movie out, and let's move on. Well, it's time to fill our Kevin Costner quota with one of two Kevin Costner double tapes. Here we have Wyatt Earp, a story about, Wyatt Earp. And this is, all right, let me say this. It's a very epic movie. It's very well done, but I got to tell you, I just didn't care for it. And I think the main reason is it was released just a year after Tombstone was released. Of course, Tombstone is about Wyatt Earp as well, and it's almost like if you're going to watch a movie about Wyatt Earp, you probably are just going to watch Tombstone, because in my opinion, definitely a superior film. Now, while both of those films are about Wyatt Earp, they sort of encompass two different parts of his life. This one, Wyatt Earp, sort of spans his entire young adult to adulthood life, and it certainly it entails his life before he became who we know him as, who history knows him as the rootin' tootin', straight shooting lawman. But before that, he was sort of a dirtbag, and but he gets absolved, and through his actions, and he is redeemed of his sins, just like all of us are, through the blood of Jesus Christ. All you got to do is take that first step and talk to him. But yeah, so Wyatt Earp, I don't know. Like I said, very well done. I just didn't care for it. Also, there's a lot of people puking in this. In the first section of the movie, there's just people puking for various reasons, and I'm not a big fan of that. I'm not sure why filmmakers feel the need to show us people puking. It seems like you could do without it. I know it's proving a point and all that, but I mean, really, the only point you're proving is making me sick as well. So, yeah, and let's see, Dennis Quaid portrays Doc Holliday in this. And, he does a good job, but I mean, after you see Val Kilmer as Doc Holliday in Tombstone, you sort of, that's it. That's like the end-all, be-all portrayal of Doc Holliday. So Dennis Quaid certainly had a long shadow to sort of get out of with that. And I don't know. I mean, it seems like when it comes to movies about Wyatt Earp, you might as well watch Tombstone. So that's what it is. This certainly is epic. A long film, certainly deserves a double tape set. But if you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. You might like it. I didn't care for it. That's okay. Everything's subjective. Certainly a good Western, a good modernly done Western, I guess you could say. Very well done. I'm a big fan of Kevin Costner. I think he's great in everything he does. And this is no exception. He did a fine job as Wyatt Earp, but again, Tombstone sort of cast a long shadow on this. So, yeah, if you haven't seen it, you should check it out, at least just to watch it once to see what you think. And let's move on to our next Kevin Costner film with JFK. Heavy movie. If you haven't seen this, you got to see this. I mean, it's an absolutely awesome film. and it's very well done. The pacing, how they tell the story, obviously it definitely it'll open your mind to a lot of things, and certainly the cast is probably one of the greatest in history. Kevin Costner, Tommy Lee Jones, Joe Pesci, Kevin Bacon, John Candy. Just to name a few. Everybody's in this film. Even I am. I know I'm just kidding about that, but there's just so many people in this film, and even Aunt Jackie, she's in this film as well. Laurie Metcalf, is that her name? Laurie Metcalf? I always call her Aunt Jackie. She's Aunt Jackie to me, but she's in this film. What's the guy? Who's the guy's name that plays Yondu in the Guardians of the Galaxy films? You know what I mean. Michael, I don't remember his name, but yeah, he's in this as well. Just a phenomenal film. And I will say, it definitely, it'll make you want to smoke a pipe because there's a lot of pipe smoking in this. They just make it look so good. Definitely, it's a role. Everybody's role is just so great. They do such a good job. John Candy, I was so surprised to see him in this film because it's unlike any role he's ever done. So you definitely see him in a new light. The same with Tommy Lee Jones. I've never seen him that way before. The next most eccentric character he would play would be Two-Face in Batman Forever. But in JFK, he plays a very, very eccentric's the best word I can really think of for that. It just shows his range, and everybody just sort of thinks of Tommy Lee Jones as just this leather-faced kind of Stonewall guy who sort of acts the same way in all of his films, but that's absolutely not true. He just always sort of looks like he just watched his son air fry a ribeye. So, I don't know. I'm a Tommy Lee Jones fan, and this definitely shows his range as an actor. And again, this film, another long film, obviously, it certainly deserves the double tape. And it's one of these films you don't want it to end because you're just so intrigued with it. JFK definitely just a great film. Found this at a yard sale because yard sales, that's a pretty good source for VHS, or at least it can be, or at least it was. I very rarely do yard sailing, but when I do, I usually find some pretty decent stuff. And this was tucked in with their Disney VHS collection that they were selling. And of course, I passed on those because what am I going to do with those? I already have so many Disney VHS, and I don't know why. You just happen to get them. That's part of being a VHS collector. You will always end up with Disney tapes for some reason. So I plucked this out of the jaws of a pile of Disney tapes. So that's a pretty good find. So yeah, moving on to our last double tape of this episode is Frank Zappa's Baby Snakes. Great concert footage, just a great film if you haven't seen it. If you're a Frank Zappa fan, I'm sure you've seen this. Great album. Most of the songs they play are from the Chic Your Booty album. But it's like a live performance. I don't remember where it's from, but it comes with these No D glasses, which you put together yourself. This still has all that complete and unbothered. So it's just a great piece here. You might notice the format is a little different for this particular video, for this tape, is because I had this up for sale for the longest time, and lo and behold, as soon as I started working on this episode, it sold. So I had to get some flash footage of it real quick just to show you. Definitely a great double tape to have. Not cheap, I'll tell you that, but a great tape to have. I was happy to have it. I had it for a long time. I also had the DVD, and I've seen this many, many times. And once you sort of seen stuff many times or enough times, you just kind of it's time to pass it on to somebody else and let them enjoy it. So, I did have this for a while. I finally sold it. Happy to do so. I hope somebody enjoys it as much as I did, but it ran its course with me, and it's time to let it go out there to somebody else to enjoy. So that is it, and that will wrap it up for part one the double tape collection, because like I said, I do have many of them, many more than I really thought I did, especially considering I don't particularly care for double tapes. I certainly ended up with many of them, enough to at least do 2 episodes of this, because if you hung in there by now, you deserve to you deserve a break, and you deserve for this video to end, because I know it's a stretch. These long form videos, it's asking a lot of the viewing audience to hang in there for that long of a time. And if I were to include the whole collection in one episode, it would have been a very long video, over an hour long, and I'm not going to do that to you. So yeah, definitely stay tuned for part 2. We'll get into some of the classic films that I have, because many of old films are pretty epic and rather long. So definitely stay tuned to see what else I have in my double tape collection. And I thank you very much for joining me today, and thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you don't like this kind of video, no, that's okay. I'll be doing the standard adventure style videos again here soon. I'm just kind of waiting for some things to improve as far as production wise goes. So I'm just going to focus on these style formats for now. So I hope you enjoy them. I hope they relax you and calm you down. And I certainly thank you for joining me for some chit chat and some VHS talk. And remember, always stay positive, keep the faith, and trust. And most certainly be kind, be generous, and be brave. And just hang in there. As cheesy as that sounds, but definitely it's good advice either way. So yeah, take care out there, and I'll see you next time, only on Captain Adam's VHS Pirate Ship. Goodbye, and God bless.